Ed Markey, after a long career in the House, eventually took John Kerry's Senate seat. Now looking for a second full term, he's in a battle with Joe Kennedy III. Kennedy, the grandson of Robert F. Kennedy, in his fourth term in the House of Representatives. If you want a little more bio than that, went to Stanford, Harvard Law, and before running for Congress, worked as an assistant district attorney in the state of Massachusetts. He joins us right now on Talk Politics. You know, before we start, I do want to point out Senator Markey has been invited on the show, and Shannon Liss Riordan can come on anytime she'd like as well. So I want to spin forward. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate the time. Before I go forward, there's been something that's on my mind. I've been talking about a lot on NECN and NBC 10 Boston is the time between when this was floated and when you declared. Do you regret not declaring a little more quickly? Because it seemed to give Senator Markey some time to galvanize support.
Look, I think it's a great question. The most important decision and the most important part of that decision was making sure that this was the right call for me, for my family, that it was something that I knew exactly what it would take in order to win this seat, why you wanted to run for it, and the impact on the people that I care about. And recognizing that Senator Markey, who I think has made an important contribution to our country, that if I was going to jump into this race, that you're going to put an awful lot of folks in a tough position, and that I needed to make sure that I felt like the decision to get into this race was worth that discomfort and was important enough to do that. And I don't regret taking the time necessary in order for me to make sure that I was comfortable with this decision. It's a big decision for me and my family, but 100%, I'm thrilled to be in this race. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity and the honor to be able to campaign around our Commonwealth, to be able to meet people in a way that you can only a campaign allows, and to be able to drive a conversation that I think is long overdue in our country.
Tell me this, now we'll move forward. The significance of the primary date. Tell people at home, because they're not necessarily following the story, why it's so important to have it after Labor Day as opposed to before, and give us some of the dynamics of what's going on.
Look, I think the basic premise here is pretty simple. Massachusetts Democratic politics, Massachusetts as a whole, our country as a whole, we should be making it easier for people to access a ballot box, not harder. And there's a lot of ways to do that. One of the ways to do that is ensure that you have a date for a primary election that is easily accessible, that is not going to come when we have, in a state like Massachusetts, an awful lot of students, folks that might be away on vacation. Setting a primary date on September 1st, a week before Labor Day, is far earlier than we normally do it, is probably going to catch some people off guard, and probably means that you're not going to have as many people that end up at a ballot box as would otherwise be.
But it's not, do you think it's voter suppression? Do you think that there's a valid argument on the other side to what they're saying as to why it needs to be earlier?
Look, I think I will defer to the legal argument a bit here as to why it needs to be earlier. I think 100%. We have to ensure that voters that are Massachusetts citizens that are overseas, that are serving our country overseas, that might be overseas for a period of time for work, serving our military, that they have access to a ballot and they get to vote. I would point out that there's, in all likelihood, I think any analysis would show, far more students and families that might not be around on September 1st, they're going to lose access to a ballot box, than the smaller number of ballots that are going to be gained by moving this date up to September 1st. And so, look, we will I will abide by whatever decision is going to be made by the state legislature. I would just point out the fact that if we are dedicated to ensuring that more people get access to a ballot box so that they can make sure their voice is heard, I'm not sure September 1st is the right day.
All right, what do you do better than Senator Markey?
Look, I think that the moment that we are in this country calls for a senator that is going to be fully engaged on not just fighting back against Donald Trump, but fighting back against the issues that allowed him to win and the issues that affect so many across this country that enable them or force them to feel like they are overlooked and taken advantage of and not heard. I have been in an awful lot of places across our Commonwealth in the past couple of weeks, but one story really sticks with me that the weekend after our announcement, the Monday after the announcement, I was at Mass and Cass, and we were out in front of Healthcare for the Homeless, and a bunch of reporters there, a bunch of cameras, and a bunch of folks that were in need of services, and this woman came out, and she was bawling, and she was angry. She said that she had worked so hard, that she was doing the best she could, that she was trying to fight her addiction, and that here in our state, with the most progressive healthcare system in the country, that she is forced out onto a corner and begging for assistance. And what else does she have to do?
So you don't think Senator Markey's done enough on health care for the state?
I don't think it's just about health care. I think that if you agree that there are structural barriers in this country that force people to the margins, if you believe that there are people that want to be seen and heard and want to make a contribution, if you believe that given the structural challenges that we face, that for all of those voices like hers, that you sit there and just say, hey, wait a little longer, we'll keep doing the things we have been doing and hope that they somehow get better. Why? Why do you expect that? Why is it such a bad thing to try to have somebody say, hey, you know what? I got different ideas. I got a different approach. And given these challenges, we're all in. And yes, it means fighting for policies, but it's not just about fighting for policies. It's fighting against those structures that actually force people to the margins, and it's fighting across this country to ensure that the right people get elected to take those challenges on.
So real quick, I want to talk impeachment. We wish we had more time. We went out to ask people a bunch of questions, about it, impeachment. It's hard in Massachusetts to find somebody who doesn't think President Trump should be impeached. So we basically asked the question, what happens in the election if he isn't removed from office? Have a quick listen.
I think people who support him will continue to support him almost no matter what.
I think it's not looking as good as it could be for him, but I didn't think he'd win the first election, so I'm perhaps not your best bellwether for that answer.
After November 9, 2016, I have lost faith, and I think anything is possible, so I figure I expect the worst and hope for the best.
A couple quick questions. If the economy holds up and he's not removed from office, is he going to be difficult to beat at the ballot box?
Look, I think that regardless as to what happens, anybody that's running for the office of the presidency, you run for that office, you don't run against an incumbent. You put forth before the American public your values and vision and what you're going to fight for and what you're going to do for them. And quite candidly, yes, I obviously care what happens about Donald Trump, but this is about a Democratic Party putting forth a talented and seasoned candidate talking about a different values and vision for our country. And I don't think, from any of the candidates on our stage at the moment, I don't think that contrast is even close. And I've got confidence in any single one of them to take on Donald Trump, regardless of where we are.
Quickly about Elizabeth Warren, she was your teacher.
Yeah.
You're supporting her. What about the people who say she can't win the general election because big business is so against her? The pushback on Medicare for all and how to pay for it.
The same people that said that as a law professor she couldn't take on a popular Republican incumbent here in Massachusetts, that it was foiled and that there was no chance that she could win, those same folks?
Pretty much. So there's no doubt that you think she can overcome the negative on Wall Street, maybe some negatives in some of the more rural parts of this country.
I think that Senator Warren has been underestimated for her entire political career, and I look forward to the rest of the country getting to see the Elizabeth Warren that I know, that I think Massachusetts has come to know, and that our country needs now more than ever.
Congressman Kennedy, we appreciate it as always.
As always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.